This is the video lesson for centripetal versus centrifugal forces. The essential questions for this lesson are, what is the difference between centripetal and centrifugal force, and how can we distinguish between them? So what is the direction of the force acting on you when you make a sharp turn in your car? So what force is making the car travel in a circular path here? So we're talking about in this example here where the car is going around this curve. So in this example, the force of friction from the tires on the road are what's causing the centripetal force. So the further question can be asked, what direction is the force acting on you when the car is traveling in the circular path? The force is pointing toward the center of the circle because it's the centripetal force rather than some other force. So we have the centripetal force is pointing into the center of the circle, and that's the force that's acting on you. But it feels like I'm being pushed toward the outside. So what's happening here? So what force is pressing me against the car door when I turn in the car? So there's no real force pushing you on to the outside. So notice the no real force. We'll talk about that more in a minute. The car is forcing you to turn. So you're in the car is turning, you're attached to the car in some way, you're sitting in the car, you're buckled into the car, you've got your seatbelt on, the car door is pushing against you. So while inertia is trying to make your body continue in a straight path forward. So the car is forcing you to turn, while inertia is trying to make your body continue in a straight path forward. So the centripetal force from the car is turning you. That force is pointing into the center of the curve. So you're in your car, and you're moving forward, but the car is moving on this circular path. So the circular path, that's the centripetal force pulling you into the center. But you want to, because of inertia, you want to keep moving forward. But the force from the car is pushing you into the center. That is the centripetal force. That's what's causing you to move in a circle. Now, all of this depends on your frame of reference. So where are you looking at the situation from? Where are you analyzing the situation from? That's your frame of reference, and that's going to determine where you are, what forces you're looking at. So let's look at inertial versus accelerating frames of reference so we can really kind of tease out these different forces and what they are. So here we have a merry-go-round. So the person on the horse is going around the merry-go-round. They've got an angular velocity of omega right here. So notice that the person on the merry-go-round feels this force pulling them outward. This is a fictional force, not a real force, which I mentioned in the last slide. This is called the centrifugal force. So in a non-inertial frame of reference, so that means a frame of reference that is accelerating. So the person on the horse is in a non-inertial frame of reference. They're in an accelerating frame of reference because they are turning constantly. So remember that a frame of reference where you are constantly turning, you're constantly rotating around and around, is you're changing direction constantly, so you're accelerating constantly. So you have this centripetal acceleration. So there's an imaginary force, the centrifugal force, that you feel like is pulling you to the outside. So this force explains the feeling of being pushed outside when you're turning. But this force doesn't really exist. This is just a force that you come up with when you are sitting on the merry-go-round and you are looking at things from your rotating frame of reference. So now let's look at an inertial frame of reference. So this would be a frame of reference from somebody sitting on the ground watching the merry-go-round spinning. So you're watching the merry-go-round spinning around, you're on the ground here, you're an observer watching somebody on the merry-go-round. So an inertial frame of reference is one that is standing still or moving at a constant velocity. So your velocity is either 0 or your velocity is constant. So there's no acceleration. So to somebody in an inertial frame of reference, there is no outside force. There's no outside force needed. What you see is the centripetal force causing the merry-go-round to turn, while the rider tends to continue in a straight path forward. So the rider wants to go off in this tangential direction. The rider wants to go off in a tangential direction, but the horse on the merry-go-round is causing this centripetal force to go around and around in a circle. So as an outside observer, you realize that there is no outside force. There's no force that's pushing the rider outside. The rider is really, the only force acting on the rider is this centripetal force pulling them into the center. And the tangential velocity, so if all of a sudden the merry-go-round disappeared and the rider maintained their velocity, they would just go off in a tangential direction. They would just fly off in this direction, assuming that the pole broke and the merry-go-round was no longer pulling them into this towards the center. They would just fly off on the horse in this direction. Okay, let's use the tennis ball here on a string as another example. So the tennis ball is a good example because we can see it spinning around and around. The centripetal force is pointing inward towards the center. The tangential velocity of the tennis ball is perpendicular to the centripetal force. So if the string were cut at any moment, the string were cut here, the tennis ball would fly off in the direction of its tangential velocity, as opposed to flying off opposite the direction of the centripetal force, which is what we would expect. So we would expect if there is a force pulling the tennis ball to the outside, we would expect when we cut the string here, we would expect the tennis ball to go flying off in this direction. But that's not what happens. The tennis ball flies off in this direction, which is the direction of its tangential velocity. So this centrifugal force, which is the force you feel when you are sitting, say, if you were riding on the tennis ball, if you were sitting here on the tennis ball riding it, you might feel this centrifugal force, but that force is imaginary because you are in a non-inertial frame of reference. You would actually, when the string were cut, you would fly off in this tangential direction here. All right, let's look at one more example, which is the spin cycle of a washing machine. So the washing machine tub is spinning around, which is causing centripetal force, and the water is spinning out some way. So we're going to look at how that works. So what causes water to spin off clothes during the spin cycle in a washing machine? So the washing machine tub has centripetal force. The water tries to continue on a straight path due to inertia, and the holes in the washer tub allow the water to fly off tangentially to the spinning tub. So the clothes inside the washer end up getting pressed into the inside wall of the washing machine. So the clothes, just like the water, are they want to go off tangentially. So as they spin, the clothes want to go off tangentially, but they are being, because the washing machine is holding them, they are feeling a centripetal force that's trying to move them into the center. So they rather than being able to move off tangentially, they are being turned into the center by the tub of the washing machine. So their force is forcing them into the center. The water, however, because of the little holes in the tub of the washing machine, the water gets to fly out tangentially to the direction of the spin. So remember, the tangential velocity is perpendicular to the centripetal force, the direction of centripetal force. So the clothes in the water are both moving tangentially, but the clothes, because of the tub, are not able to fly off tangentially. They are forced to spin around in a circle. Whereas the water, because of the little holes in the washer tub, are able to fly off tangentially, and they get caught by the rest of the washing machine surrounding the tub that's spinning around. So that is how the spin cycle works in your washing machine.